Welcome to Global Vision. I'm super happy to have here with us Alexandra Wilkis Wilson. I love your name, by the way. It sounds so amazing.
It's a tongue twister.
Yes, and I think she's a champion in just funding companies, selling companies, amazing ideas. And I'm super excited to have this conversation with you. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So the first question is, tell me how it came about that you make this marriage between fashion and you also coming from investment banking. How this came about?
Sure. So when I graduated college, a long time ago, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do in terms of my career, and investment banking was a path that was very structured, and there was a process. The banks would come to my university to interview college seniors, and I interviewed and ended up working for Merrill Lynch, initially in Latin America, focused on the Latin America group out of New York. And then I got to move to London and was there for 2 years. And I loved the international experience of my 3 years in investment banking. I speak 5 languages. As you know, we were chatting in Spanish, but I also speak Portuguese and French and Italian, and got to use my love of languages and travel and international business at a very young age, because I was 22 years old. And then I went back to business school, which was always something I thought I should do. And while I was in business school was when I had a conversation with myself. No, I'm just kidding. And really went down a path of wanting to work as an operator in an industry that I was passionate about. And so I ended up going to work first for Louis Vuitton in their management and training program. So ended up in fashion, but I was equally interested in beauty. And I actually interviewed pretty seriously with Inditex. I almost took a job in La Coruña, which I've never actually been there. I was interviewing in New York, but the job would have been there. And, I ended up working in luxury at Vuitton, but I was open-minded. It didn't have to be luxury. It just had to be a brand that interested me. And then I went from Louis Vuitton to Bulgari, where I ran the retail stores in the US. And then in 2007 is when my entrepreneurial journey began with Gilt.
And how the idea of Gilt came and why? Because I've been interviewing a lot of entrepreneurs, and there's always a jump and a reason for the jump. What was for you that reason?
Well, today is actually my anniversary. So I'm thinking back to May 12th, 2007, which is when I got married. And I think that it was right after I got married that I started talking to one of my best friends, Alexis Maybank, and these 2 other engineers, Mike and Fong and Kevin Ryan. And they were working on a plan for what eventually became known as Gilt. And Alexis, one of my best friends, still one of my best friends, really convinced me to join her in the journey. And I, at the time, had never done anything truly entrepreneurial. I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit and personality, and I'm a self-starter and motivated. I don't take no for an answer. So I have always had a lot of entrepreneurial traits, but I had never done anything, from scratch, from the beginning. And anyway, so they convinced me to join them. And in November 2007 is when we actually launched Gilt. And the idea really was, you have to kind of take a moment and think back to what life was like in 2007. Think about your shopping behavior. Think about how you used technology. A lot of people weren't even using an iPhone. They were on a BlackBerry. I mean, life was different. We weren't necessarily buying and consuming fashion online. We were still going to department stores and specialty stores in person. So the world looked very different 14 years ago. And effectively, we wanted to recreate the excitement of a New York City sample sale and bring that excitement online in a new shopping format. And so we never used the word sample sale. I'm sorry, we never used the word flash sale when we were describing our business and what we were about. We called it an online sample sale, but eventually the fashion industry started to call this idea of online sales that lasted for a limited time, they started calling them flash sales. And I can go on and on. I wrote a book about the experience. It's called By Invitation Only. But I think the reason I brought up my wedding is I think getting married and feeling this sense of I can do something a little riskier because now I'm a team of two and my husband had a more traditional job in finance. And so it was okay for me to take a riskier position. We didn't have children at the time. It was kind of a perfect moment in my life. I think timing is so important in everything that we do. So the timing was very relevant. I think I was open to taking a risk that I might not have been open to at a different stage in my life.
And I'm fascinated by GlamSquad because I've been using it and using it. Tell me how that idea came about also. You jump from Gilt and then you have this amazing idea.
So GlamSquad initially existed before I got involved, and it was founded by a group of people, including two guys that I had gone to college with, and I ran into them at a Harvard entrepreneurial venture capital event in New York City. And they were so excited to reconnect with me and wanted to tell me about this business that they were just starting and they felt had a lot of potential, and they wanted to tell me about it. So we immediately got together. They explained, at the time, the idea was doing in-home services for hair. So blowouts in the comfort of your own home. And I loved that idea. As a busy mom and professional running around New York City, it really resonated with me. And as you can tell, I'm not very good at doing my own hair. I apologize. I don't look super glam. It's very warm and muggy right now in Miami, where I now live. And so initially I said I wanted to be an advisor to GlamSquad. I was still working at Gilt at the time, and they really convinced me to join them full-time as a co-founder and CEO. And I had never been a CEO at the time. And so I was really passionate about the mission and the vision of the brand, and really understood, if you could make beauty services accessible to people at a relatively affordable price, so it wouldn't just be a service for the rich and famous, that would be pretty amazing. And it was 2014, it was when we were starting to see the on-demand economy booming and the Uber of everything happening. And it just seemed like a logical next step for me in my career. And I should say that while I was at Gilt, I advised and got involved on the sidelines of a number of startups. So now it's been over 60 startups that I've either advised or been an angel investor in. And I love applying all the lessons I've learned, the good, the bad, the ugly, to businesses that are growing and scaling and can benefit from some of the lessons that I've learned in many cases the hard way.
And what is the last venture? Tell me, what are you doing right now? Because I know you sold these businesses, and I think now you're working with Clerisy. So let us know.
Clerisy, yes, sure. So I am now back in the trenches. I feel more entrepreneurial than ever. I have launched a growth equity fund with an incredible partner. Her name is Lisa Myers, and Clerisy is a growth equity fund. We are investing in consumer companies and what we call techsumer companies. And We have raised $75 million, and we're investing at least $5 million into different consumer businesses that are already scaling. They're ideally profitable or very, very close to profitability, and they need capital and real strategic partnership from Lisa and from me to help them scale. So we're not investing really early stage. So it's not companies that are just beginning and founders have an idea and a big vision and they're kind of starting in their garage or their basement and early days. No, we are coming in once that business actually exists, it works. There's product market fit. There's a consumer that's buying the product or the service on a repeat basis, and the company needs capital to scale and expand. It could be to hire more people. It could be to start a new revenue stream or expand into a new category or country. And we come in and we bring our expertise. My partner, Lisa, has been an incredible global investor her whole career. She was most recently a partner at L. Catterton. And we have this great dynamic where I have been an operator, so I know the blood, sweat, and tears in the trenches. And she has a macro vision and is thinking about what is the exit and how do we strategically grow the business to get you to a fantastic exit that's in line with what the founders want and of course what investors want as well.
Wow, I love that idea. And also I would like to know, what is the lessons that you wish you know when you just started the first time with Gilt?
I mean, there's so many lessons learned. I think that as a personality, I have the tendency to put a lot of pressure on myself and to worry a lot. You know, I remember my younger self in high school. I was always worried. I had big goals and dreams, and I was just often a little anxious that how would I get to execute on my goals and dreams and vision and whatever that goal might be in the moment. And I think that I wish someone had told me to just calm down and relax, and things have a way of working out the way they're supposed to. You know, now I tell that to a lot of entrepreneurs and founders on a regular basis. I think sometimes we are our harshest critics, and
absolutely,
and that's okay. I think it's important to be really driven and goal-oriented and ambitious. I prefer that to the other extreme, but for those of us that do put so much pressure on ourselves, sometimes you need to hear, you know, slow down, relax, take a deep breath. Sorry, you see my new COVID puppy. Se llama so Churro.
Cute. Me encanta el nombre Churro, lo más.
She's waving. She's a very social dog. So
I love it.
Sorry about that.
No, I love that he's here with us. Perfect. And you know what? I love the fact that you work so well with women. You just explained your new partnership and you put so much passion and so much happiness in the fact that you're working with a woman and you both have different strengths and you put them together to move forward. What advice you will give to female startups who want to hire other women? And I think that the way that you portray how easily is work with women, what kind of advice you would give about that?
Well, I wish we lived in a world where we would always be searching for the most qualified person for a job or for a role, and we didn't have to be thinking about, you know, how do we find more women to be more diverse, or how do we find more people of color to be more diverse? I just wish that that was a natural way of how all people operated and businesses existed. So I'll just put that out there. I think that, you know, I grew up in New York City and I went to a girls' school for 10 years. And I think for me, gravitating to other women is just part of who I am and my DNA, so to speak. There probably are women out there who can get competitive or jealous with other women. I'm not that way. I've never been that way. I don't really understand that mentality. For me, if I can open a door for another person, especially a woman, who maybe hasn't had as many opportunities or doesn't have as deep a network, why wouldn't I do that? I'd always want to help someone. You know, today you and I are meeting for the first time, but if I can ever be helpful to you, of course I would do that. And I have a feeling you would do the same for me. So, you know, I think in terms of working with anyone, women, men, it's a question of communicating with people and understanding what are the strengths and weaknesses of others, and making sure you are transparent about everything in a business. When I was earlier in my career, sometimes having difficult conversations didn't come naturally to me. I will say, when I had to give a review to someone, I loved giving all the praise, but then when I had to work on some constructive feedback, that was hard for me to do. And I learned with experience and time and age that when you give feedback, even if it's critical, it actually makes people better. So I would say, when you're working with people, set them up for success, set your team up for success, communicate. And if something's not working, you gotta address it very quickly and early on, because rarely, if things are not working that well, rarely do they just get better and fixed over time. You have to put an effort into making things better. And sometimes that takes work and painful conversations, but I think it's worth it in the end. And I love working with women, I'll just say, but I like working with guys as well. I think I just enjoy working around people who are smart, who teach me, who inspire me, who motivate me. And I always like to be around the people who are what I call the uppers and not the downers. You know, why spend time with people who bring you down and who make you feel badly about yourself? Seek the people in your life who bring you up.
You know what? You share such an amount of wealth of wisdom right now that I don't know how to reframe it. But I mean, there is one thing that you said that really I think it's important to talk a little bit more about it. You said you wished we are in a world that what it matters is the talent, and it doesn't matter if it's gender or color or anything like that. How do you think that diversity is going to play a role, particularly with all these new investors and entrepreneurs that they want to start new companies? And you mentioned the role of diversity, how important it is that we really create companies that they feel that way, you know. And I could see that you mean it, and you also give us so much wealth of knowledge about how it's all about transparency and communication. And I would like to know your views about where are we going in the world, and what advice you also will give to startups to really be more inclusive.
I wish I had all the answers. I think that we've come a long way in a short period of time. When you think back to a year ago and the BLM movements that were happening across the US, I think that now diversity and inclusion is a critical part of big companies, because they recognize how far behind they were. And I think it takes time to get to where we're striving to in terms of goals for companies. I think it's important. Each company, each team has to figure out what their realistic goals are to be more equitable. And, you know, that comes across, what does your team look like? Is it diverse? It's also, are people paid equitably? You know, there's a lot of studies out there that women aren't necessarily paid the same for an equivalent job that a man has. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I think you have to be positive. And if it means that some of us have to work twice as hard to prove that we're capable, then we should work twice as hard. And maybe that's not fair, but, you know, as I was told as a little girl by my parents, life isn't fair. And I tell that to my kids. And so you don't take no for an answer, and you hustle. And, you know, we can't choose some of the circumstances that we've found ourselves in, but we can all come together and make things better. And I love seeing that, starting with investors, you're seeing efforts being made to try to invest in diversity and inclusion. There's a lot of work to be done. I'll tell you, as the first time fund manager, Clerisy is our first fund and is the first of what I'm sure are going to be more funds. It's not easy. Even with all my experience and all my partners' experience, we are treated as a first-time fund. And even with a lot of initiatives out there to try to fund emerging managers, a lot of initiatives to fund emerging managers, and I'm even Cuban, it's still very hard to raise capital.
Wow. Well, I think you would leave us with a lot of insights and great tips. And just one more question, just to conclude. You moved recently to Miami and you leave us here in New York.
I'll go back a lot to visit, don't worry.
What difference do you see? And also because you know that the atmosphere in business in New York, you know how it is, but I know that there's been a lot of changes in Miami, also in Florida. So I would like to know, why is the reason that you move? It has more professional, it was because of COVID. I mean, just let us know.
I've always loved Miami, especially Key Biscayne. And I think for me on a personal level, and my husband and children, COVID made us realize that we could build our careers in a place other than New York. And we never really thought that would be possible. We thought we'd move to Key Biscayne when we were older and retired and our children were in college. And we just made a decision a little impulsively to move here last April. We made the decision and we moved in June, and we're so happy. I still feel very connected and tied to New York and my friends, and I think I'll be going back a lot. It will always be an important part of who I am. I am a real New Yorker, but it's nice to actually live in my happy place. I mean, this has always been a dream, and now it's wonderful that it's the reality.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us, for being so open to speak with us. And also, I think that the fact that you said that it doesn't matter where you are who you are, and you could do business anywhere, also leave us with this wonderful idea that that's what COVID did to a lot of us. You don't need to be sticking to a place. And as a New Yorker, I also have this limited belief that if I'm not here, business will not run in a certain way. So thank you also for sharing. It was like this message was in the perfect time.
Well, thank you. It was so nice to meet you, and you are amazing. So I'm glad to now have you in my world.
Thank you. And soon I will be definitely in Miami, and I hope to see you then, okay?
Wonderful.
Thank you for this time with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.